Okay, so we've dealt with the driven process, we've talked about titles, we've talked about aims and objectives, and in the frame of an introduction to get you well started and to carry your reader with you. Now what we need to go on to is what comes after the introduction, which has set all that up. Well, it's going to be something a little surprising, maybe. I know you want to get your teeth into the workplace, etc., but it's actually not really that in the grand logic of things. What we need to do is ask the question, concerning my aims and objectives, what is already known? You're unlikely to be the first person ever who was asked the majority of this question that you're posing. Maybe nobody has asked it about a company the size of yours in that geographical location, in that stage of development, in this function of the business, but there is a lot known about marketing. There is a lot known about international marketing. We're beginning to know a lot more about intercultural international marketing. So some of the answers to the questions that you're looking for to be able to address your aims and objectives are already there. They're already known. They've been written about by people like professionals. Well, who do they write for? Why would a professional write anything? Wouldn't a professional just get on with his job or her job? Well, actually, to share knowledge. Okay, we're competing with others, but we're not competing with everybody. If you've solved a problem to do with using the internet and search engine optimization in your company, which is an energy company, why not share that with a clothing company? What does it matter? So we do share. We have things like professional associations where people who are working in a particular sector or a particular business function, marketing, planning, development, research, finance, etc., or perhaps a mix of both. I used to belong to an association, which was for people in the tourism industry who were specifically interested in the use of new technologies. So we were writing materials for our colleagues, we were going to conferences, we were sharing information, etc. Why? Well, after university, there's no university. You're out there. There's no great wise woman or wise man that's suddenly going to turn up on a Thursday and say, hey, heard you got a problem. I'm going to try and help you with it. So there's a lot of self-help going on out there, and it's going on particularly in organizations which we call associations in the voluntary sector. So it's not commercial, it's not private sector, it's not public sector, it's the voluntary sector. Associations, people who get together because they have a common idea, a common ideal, a common purpose, a common problem that they want to solve, all of the above. So they write about things. And then there's people like academics who do the same. We find interesting certain things that are happening in the world, in business, and we go out and ask questions. We go out and pose innocent questions, and sometimes we come up with fairly remarkable answers. And then we publish those things so that people can benefit from them, people can learn from them, people can change their corner of the world with ideas that have been proven already to work. So there is going to be a lot of information out there in the professional literature and in the academic literature, which you need to look at. Why? Because you don't need to reinvent the wheel, as we say. You don't need to go out and find out the answers to everything, because a lot of those answers are already there. Why waste your time, your effort, your company's money trying to do things which have already been done, which have already been used, which have already been tested, which have already been proven? If things have been found out, tested and proven, you can trust them. There is evidence to support them. So what you need to do is to look at each one of your aims and objectives. Take the number 1 off the top, which is probably going to be fairly general, and ask the question, what do I already know about this? What is already known about this? You go out and search in the professional literature, the academic literature, Google Scholar, everywhere where you think the information should be. So what you do is you set out with an idea of what you need to be able to cover everything in your objective 1. You go and look for that material. You can compare and contrast that material. Don't just find a bit and dump it. How do we know whether it's good? How do we know whether it's the best? How do we know whether it's been proven? You need to compare and contrast what is out there to decide what is best and what best suits your purpose and applies within your organization's domain. So you can compare and contrast those things and then answer the question, okay, I've looked at everything that's decent, that's useful, and that's out there. Have I got a full 100% answer to everything I needed to know for objective 1? Maybe, if it's a very general objective, as usually first objectives are, you will probably know an awful lot about it from what is existing, which is already out there and written about. So I wouldn't be surprised for quite a lot of you, if your first objective, you're saying everything I needed to know, I found. It's there, it's good stuff, it's tested and proven. I can rely on that, and it's good evidence when I give it to my company. Terrific. But logically, the deeper you go, the more specific you get in your objectives, the less you're likely to find exists at the moment in the literature, professional and academic. So you need to go through each one of your aims and objectives, but by the time, if you've got 6 or 7, by the time you get to objective 3 or 4, you're probably being in a situation where you're finding maybe 40 or 50% of what you need to know, and the stuff missing. By the time you get to your last on the list of your aims and objectives, you probably hardly know anything about that at all, maybe 10 or 20%, but 80% is hidden in the archives of your company or in your manager's brains, and you need to go and find that and get it. Okay, so it's a simple reductive sum. You can all handle a minus sign. This is what I need to know. That's my objective number 1, 2, 3, whatever. I go out and I read and I research and I look what is available and I find this much. So that, what I needed to know, minus that, what I have discovered is already known, leaves me this bit that I don't know, this bit that the literature review doesn't tell me, this bit that the secondary research doesn't help me fill. In other words, what you found is a gap in your research, which I call, logically, a research gap. What you've done is found perhaps the first element of the things you're going to need to go out and find yourself in what we will deal with later, which is called your primary research. Primary because you do it. The literature review we've been talking about here is called secondary research because it's secondary to you. Someone else has already done it. So let's go through that again. You take each aim and objective. You look at each one. You go out and you look at what is currently known. And then you do, that's what I needed to know. That's what we do know. That's what we're missing, which is now become part of my research gap. It's on my hit list, if you like, my targets for my primary research. I would do this, if I were you, very mathematically. I would even put it in a table for myself so that I'm saying This is my objective. This is what I need to find. I've presented my literature review to you for this objective, and I've identified this and this and this and this and this and this, but I'm missing that and that and that. And then you carry those forward as a target for your own primary research. It's very reductive. It's very mathematical. Take this, subtract that, and you're left with something. But at least it's simple. At least you can all do that calculation. At least if you go through this for each aim and objective, you can't miss anything. As I've said with this idea of this driven process, you've taken your title, you've broken it down into aims and objectives. You've taken each one of the list of your aims and objectives, and you have gone out and looked to answer the question, what do we know? You've found that, and you've also found what we don't know. And that leaves you, if you add up all the don't knows about all of the aims and objectives, it gives you your total hit list for your own primary research, the things that you will have to take responsibility for finding out because no one else has done this before. Okay, so it's pretty specific in the way that you should go about it. It's pretty obvious, it's pretty simple, but you'll be surprised how many people don't do it. For the most part, your teachers tend to find that students do a literature review, and what it consists of is, here's a number of sources, dump, 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 not attached to any particular aim and objective. We don't know at the end what you've calculated that you really know very well, and what you've discovered is still missing. We just don't know that because we're not told. And then the student says, all right, I've gone and done some research and here it is. Where's the join? Where's the system that says, this is what I need to know. That's what I have found out. This is what I'm missing. This is what I'm going to go out and get with my own primary research. And I've designed my primary research to be able to find these specific things. Usually, the definition of a research gap, a methodology in most dissertations, rapport de stage is almost completely absent, even after I've been doing this course that I'm doing now with you. By the time you get to M2, some people just jump straight over it. And we just go, when that happens. Because I've sold you, I hope, the idea of this driven process. You can use it, and if you follow it, you won't make any mistakes. So at the end of this section, if you like, you have, for each aim and objective, the things you don't know. You've identified what they are. You add those together, and you've got a menu, a hit list, if you like, your targets for your primary research. So the next question is obviously going to be one of method. We call it, logically, methodology. If those are the things I need to know, well, where are they? Who's got them? In what form do they exist? Am I looking for statistical information, or I'm looking for people's impressions of things? Because, of course, the way you go out and get those things is going to be very, very different. So what we're trying to do now is to move on to this idea of method and writing a methodology. It doesn't have to be huge, it doesn't have to be highly technical, but we need to be convinced that what you're doing is the best way to be able to find the information you've said is missing within the limits and constraints of time, money, access, permissions from your company, within the limits of all those constraints. Okay, so that's what we're going to go on to next. For the moment, we have this hit list of things you need to do for your primary research, and the next video will address the idea of methodology. How do you go and get them? Thank you.